Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before I get started, I want to let everybody know that this webinar is being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be sent to all of you either tomorrow or early next week. We are live. This is an Ask Sam Anything webinar. We have a long list of questions that came in through the registration process. So we've got a lot going on there, and we'll start with those questions. But do not worry if you haven't had a chance to submit any questions yet. We'll be accepting them throughout the entire webinar, and please jump into the Q&A and fire away for the next 45 minutes. I'm Melinda Prescher, Senior Marketing Director at Insightly, an Unbounce company, and I'm hosting today's webinar. I am so excited today. I've got the one and only Sam McKenna with us. If you're an Insightly customer, and even if you're not, you've probably seen Sam with us on other Insightly webinars, also all over LinkedIn. She is the CEO of hashtag Sam Sales Consulting. She's an award-winning sales leader, a keynote speaker, a brand ambassador for LinkedIn. We're absolutely thrilled to have you here today, Sam, and also excited for this audience to be able to ask you questions and really get some access to your great thought leadership. So to help us get to know a little bit more about you, the audience today, we actually launched 2 polls at the start of the webinar, and I want to go ahead and share those results. So one of the questions was, does your company currently use a CRM? 95% have said yes, and just 5% have said no. And that's actually not surprising. I actually expect quite a few Insightly customers on this webinar, probably some prospects as well, and some fans of Sam, but that looks pretty much what I expected. And then what role are you in? So we've got 15% of respondents said they were an SDR or BDR, 11% AE, 20% frontline leader, and 31% senior leader. I love that mix. What do you think, Sam?
Coming up. Love it, that mix. Love to see how many people are also here to learn, even if they're not exactly at the AE level just yet or the executive level, how to figure out how to stand out and how to really supercharge your pipeline. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys to be here.
Wonderful. Well, let's just go back and do kind of a recap of what we'll be talking about today. So, here at Insightly and Unbounce, our team is actually completely in the thick of planning for 2025. We're going to actually be getting together soon as a marketing team to do some of this as well. And so this is really top of mind for us as an organization, and Sam, I'm sure for yours too, and obviously everybody else on the line. So today's webinar is really guided by 3 key questions that we thought would help frame this up really nicely for people as we all start thinking about what we're going to be doing next year. We want to focus on refining sales processes, accelerating time to close, and creating your prospecting playbook. So Sam, are you ready to get started with me?
Let's rock and roll. Okay.
Okay. So we had a question come in from the audience through the registration process. And that question was, what immediate techniques can we implement to manage or control the sales process, eliminate bottlenecks, ensuring faster lead conversion, and a faster sales cycle?
So I think a couple of things here, right? Everybody, one of the things that people come to us all the time about is I'm stuck with my deals at 50%. We have, tons of deals that are in our forecast and our CRM. They're stuck at 50%. What do we do now? No cash incentives, by the way, whoever just said that in the chat. No, bad dog. Let's think about a couple different things that we can do. So number one, thinking around if deals are stuck at 50%, it usually isn't a thought of what should we do next to keep them going, but really you need to look back at what we did to begin with. Most deals stuck at 50% mean that we usually didn't do discovery correctly. We're only single threaded. We don't truly understand their challenges. A lot of those deals, when we dig into them, we don't actually have a deal. One way you can also look at something, let's say you were forecasting something for this quarter, it bled and you're like, oh, it bled, next quarter. If it doesn't come in the next week, 10 days after the next quarter, you probably didn't have an accurately forecasted deal. So we want to think about a couple of things, right? How do we set fire to these deals? We just recently started a newsletter on LinkedIn, exclusively geared for leaders. I think somebody on our team might be on the chat that can drop the link in, but it's called Hindsight. And just, I'm going to give you a couple of those tips really quick. Take a look at the rest of them, especially if you're leaders and thinking about how do we accelerate deals. So one, let's look at this very specific example. We had somebody that said, hey, we've got a deal that's coming in. Let's say it was today, November 7th, right? It's going to come in at the end of the year. Here's what's happening. Number one, a board presentation is going to happen at the beginning of December 8th, December 9th, something around there. Nothing can happen with the deal until that board presentation happens. So we've all heard feedback like that. We can't move forward until we get a new CRO in. We can't move forward until this person comes back from vacation. We can't do this until this XYZ happens, but we can actually do a lot of things in the meantime. So if you are stuck in something like that, or if you're chasing a deal at year end and you're like, there's nothing I can do until that board presentation happens, I want you to ask yourself a couple of questions. Number one, what is their procurement process like? So tell me about that. Is it on their paper or your paper? Are the T's and C's already done and scoped? Have you looked at InfoSec? Do you know what kind of security guidelines they have? Do you have a sense of exactly who needs to sign what and at what intervals? Do they have a random stamp that they need to issue you before a deal closes? If you're an experienced seller, these are all things you've gone through before, but even experienced sellers sometimes forget to ask those questions, or worse, we haven't built a relationship where we're comfortable asking those questions. So we might be a relationship seller and we don't want to ask those questions because we don't want to upset the buyer or feel like, we're asking salesy questions when in fact that's our job, right? Build a relationship and then being able to say, if we're going to sign this by the end of December, these things need to happen. So spot check the deals that you have by the end of the quarter. If you are selling to a mid-market company or higher, you really want to spot check those deals to make sure you have those questions answered. If, let's say, you get a response back that says, well, I'll tell you what our procurement process is like, but you can't meet with anybody until, this box is checked or something like that. Ask to see their contracts. Start to get those contracts to your sales team or your sales operations team and say, these are the things they require, right? Litigation has to be done in Delaware over our preference of Texas. They're asking for a cancellation for convenience clause, which we don't do. They're asking for this kind of notes around breach of contract or the way that we do SLAs, which is service level agreements. Look at all that today, because if your sales ops team, your legal team, your procurement team can look at those things, right, and say, okay, we know exactly what we can already edit on our contracts in advance, you're going to help accelerate your deal. One other thing that I would guide you here in terms of accelerating that deal is start to think about what you can do in terms of actively keeping meetings on the board. If you are selling, again, commercial or that enterprise level company, you want to make sure that you have frequent touch points. So if you're selling something that's going to take another 6 months of work, right? Working through the process, proving value, making business cases, make sure you have weekly or bi-weekly meetings. Even if they don't happen every time, which I promise you they won't, it holds that person accountable to communicating back with you, right? And it should be a broader team, not just one person. Last thing, and then I promise I'll stop talking here. The one thing that's going to happen is if you take that contract, I was just referencing it, and you bring it back to your sales operations team and you say, start going through this, right? So we can make sure the contract is easier to sign at the end of the year. They're going to say, well, do you have everything you need to know that this is a real deal? And then you're going to say, what? So it's a great way for you to spot check your process. Have somebody else ask you who sees hundreds of these deals come and fall through, what the things are that you should be asking that you may not know. This is particularly beneficial should you happen to report to a boss that doesn't know much about what they should do from a proper forecasting perspective. And now you can get support from sales ops. Again, our newsletter is Hindsight, so check it out if you want the rest of the list, and it comes out monthly on Sunday evenings. You're welcome. Who's excited to get a cure for Sunday scaries with thoughts from Sam? Nobody? Okay.
It sounds amazing. I want that, actually. Fantastic, Sam. That is so good. I think about too, a lot of the times from a marketing perspective, how can I make my sales team's life easier by getting ahead and asking them questions about the things that I need to know to put into our marketing campaigns, things they might be thinking about. So I always think about that too from the cross-functional perspective. What can I do to make life easier for people who are out on the front lines? Not saying I'm always great at it, but trying to
No.
get there.
What's something that you think you could teach others that are listening about, like what a piece of advice you might give, or a way to even proactively broach that question? Because I think that's what we often find, right? Sales and marketing,
Yeah.
oil and water, oil and vinegar, we don't get along, but we can. Anything
Yeah.
that you do that others can maybe learn from?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it really comes down to sitting down. I'll carve out some time for myself to think about, okay, for this campaign to be successful, what do I need? What do I need to know? What do I need to know from product? What do I need to know from sales? What are the things about the sales process I don't understand, but I maybe need to understand so I can help people work better? How are things actually going? Let's say I'm writing a sales cadence, for example, for our SDR team. Let's go back and take a look at what we did before. How did that actually work? Did that resonate? Did it sound too markety? Was it really helpful? Were the assets that we created actually something that people found interesting? Did it start creating a conversation? How did that help? So, there's no question that's really too dumb, actually.
I love it. And the collaboration is really nice. So kudos to you and thanks for advocating for that.
So let's I think this is a really good one for sales and for marketers as well. So someone asked, what is the most effective way to reach and attract new clients?
So I think a few things, and it's going to be a little bit of a different answer for everybody, depending on what stage you're at, brand recognition, things like that. And we are, in fact, just talking about this morning, but I think one, thinking about how we prospect is really important. For any of you that are in leadership roles, right? We're in a little bit of a different economic climate right now, and we're also in a different climate in terms of how to succeed in sales. What we see a lot of our clients do is realize that our reps, right, have been subjected to product-led growth, to disruptive technologies, to things that just bring a ton of inbound leads, right? So if you sold for Zoom in April of 2020 or March of 2020, you didn't really have to prospect much, right? If you started at Outreach or SalesLoft and you were the first to market with sales engagement platforms, you didn't really have to do much prospecting. So we've had all of these places, right, that have been first to market, disruptive, et cetera, that have created inbound leads. And all of a sudden, we're taking all of these sellers and we're saying, go prospect. And our sellers are like, huh? Like, how the hell do I do that? So one thing that I would tell you first is making sure that we've got some kind of strategy for how to prospect, and exactly here's how you do that. If you have access to LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you have the most powerful prospecting tool available to you, right? And then you pair that with the power of all the data that sits in Insightly and your CRM. Oh my gosh. So let's talk about a couple of things that you can do here. One, pop into LinkedIn Sales Navigator and run some of these really basic low-hanging fruit searches. If you go into the platform and if you go into the little URL section, the search at the top, you're going to see something that says lead filters. Click on that, and all of a sudden, you have 30 different search criteria that you can say, hey, Siri, effectively, tell me a little bit about this with my territory. So effective outreach to me doesn't start with the emails and things like that, which I'll talk about in a second. It starts with making sure we're even reaching out to the right person. And how do we do that? We do that this way. Number one, go into those search filters and say, hey, I wonder if anybody worked previously at my company. So go into past company and write LinkedIn. Go into past company and write on24, which is where I worked before, LinkedIn. And then for current company, just in your workflow section, you can say in my territory, in the CRM list that I've got listed in there, or you can say in these top 50 list of accounts that I'm looking to target. So all of a sudden, you're going to see if you had former coworkers that used to work with you, even if you didn't know them, and now work in your territory. It doesn't matter what title they have. Try for senior titles first. Try for your exact buyer persona first. But what I love about this, right, is that I can then go and I can do a little show me, you know me, which I'll talk about in a second. But I can go and say, hey, we used to work for the same employers. I bet we'd have some great war stories, scars to talk about our time there. But I'd love to talk to you about how we could support you in your organization or support your cross-functional partners if they don't, if it's not your direct buyer persona, if you'd be up for a chat. What I love about this is even one step before that. Let's say I find Melinda, right? And Melinda and I don't know each other, but I see that she used to work at my previous company. What I'm also going to find is that we share a ton of common connections, hopefully people who can vouch for me. So I could use their name in the subject line and say like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you know Lee. He happened to be the officiant at my wedding. Did you guys work together? I'm immediately pulling her in, right, with somebody who can vouch for me, somebody that's smart. And then on top of that, right, I'm upping the odds that that person's going to respond, because when they look at the email, they can be like, who the hell is this person? And they can go and back channel me to the people that we have in common. Again, even if we didn't know each other or work together. So that's one thing, right? Like the fastest path into our accounts is finding familiar ground. And to that effect, think about this. Look at your top 2 clients, your top 20, 30, 50 clients in your vertical, in your size space, etc. So if you sell to enterprise, what are the top 10 or 20 enterprise accounts that you guys have that you have sold to year and year again? For past company, put those accounts in, and for current company, put your territory in. When you hit search, you're saying, tell me anyone that used to work for our best clients and now works for my territory. You're going to get probably a ton or no results. But if you get a ton, then start to narrow it down. Job title, job responsibility, geography, years of experience, seniority. And you're slowly but surely going to find great names of people, right, who are working, again, who have brand familiarity with your account and now work in your territory. I'm going to give you one more, and then we'll talk about how to actually reach these people. This is one of my favorite searches. And I think for me, my success in sales has come down to doing all the random things that people are like, when did I not think of that? And I'm like, I don't know, but I thought about it at 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep because I'm panicked about not hitting my quota for the quarter. So you're welcome. And it's really just these little harebrained ideas. So this is one of my favorite ones. Go into Sales Navigator. If you work for a company that has, let's say 100 and I don't know, 50 employees or more, which probably, hopefully some of you, but if you work for a company with 150 employees or more, pop into Sales Navigator and do a search. The only thing you want to ask for is current company equals my company right now. So I would basically go in and say, tell me anybody who works for Sam Sales. Well, as a CEO, I know who all those people are, but let's pretend I still work for LinkedIn and I have no idea who most of those people are. Then run the search, maybe write the seniority, right? So LinkedIn's pretty flat. So there's lots and lots and lots and lots of directors. So I'm going to look for maybe VP, right? SVP, etc. And then I'm not going to look at the results, but what I'm going to do is hit save search. And what that means is that every time a new executive joins my company, I'm going to get an alert. What do I want to do with that? Let's say it's Melinda. She joins, let's say she's a VP of product. Let's say she's in New York, I'm in DC, right? I'm going to go and message her and be like, oh my gosh, I just saw you join the organization. Welcome. And she's going to be like, wow, thanks. And I'm going to be like, you're welcome. Welcome. I'm so excited. As soon as she accepts my meeting invite, I'm going to go and click on her profile. And under her profile, as long as her connections are open and to first degree connections, which most are, I'm going to quickly look in Sales Navigator and say, tell me everybody that Melinda is first degree connected to that's in my accounts. When Melinda joins an organization, what she wants to do, 2 things are happening. One, she is drinking from the fire hose of like, how do I learn my job and figure out where the hell the bathroom is? And on top of that, she is hopeful to make positive impact as quickly as she can. What's the best way she can do that? She can impact revenue. So if I then come back to Melinda and I'm like, hey, welcome again. Very excited to have you. By the way, I need some help. I noticed that you're connected to 6 people in my target accounts. I'm trying to multi-thread. I'm trying to crack in. Do you know them well? It seems like you guys work together at these 3 companies. Here's the history of my attempts to get in these accounts. Would you be willing to help me? By the way, when I introduce myself, I want to make sure she knows who I am, because when I was at LinkedIn, people would call me all the time and they're like, Sam, it's Bob. Can you introduce me to Melinda? And I'm like, who the hell are you, Bob? So make sure to introduce yourself and give them a little bit of context. But here's what's really cool about that. Just that one move. Now Melinda has a way to impact. I'm probably going to get her attention to do this because she's going to be like in the honeymoon period, very excited to be here and help out, right? So she's probably more motivated to do that. And she's probably going to talk about me in a positive way to other people. Wow, that Sam's a real whippersnapper out there, real go-getter. And he'll be like, you bet I am. Can you make those intros that you promised you would make? So a couple of things. One, just to find the right people and smartly attack your accounts. I know some of you probably are like, holy crap, Sam talks quickly. Come back and listen to this, right? The recording to get some of those things you missed. Now, how do we get in front of those people and how do we do that? What I would say is use the information you have in their LinkedIn profile. So find out information about them. Where did they live? Where did they go to school? If you were going to meet this person at a conference, what small talk would you come up with them, right? Because you can't just be like, Melissa or Melinda, hello, would you like to buy my stuff? Because Melinda's going to say no. So I have to think about what I can do to connect with that person and just get my email open. If you're reaching out to me, I'm an open book on LinkedIn, right? You can find anything in there you want, but write a subject line maybe that says Switzerland, becoming a mom, Switzerland plus becoming a mom plus your company name. If you look at my profile, you'll know that I'm originally from Switzerland. I posted something today about my road to becoming a mom, and I have no idea what the hell your company is, but I'm going to open it because you did your research. And with that, I will stop talking for a few seconds.
This is so amazing. And what I love about your approach is how authentic it is. I mean, I think we all get a lot of emails, and I think people they're kind of trying to implement what you're describing, but I think there's a little bit of the authenticity that's missing sometimes. So I think maybe 6 months after I got a promotion, I started to again get emails trickling in. People I didn't know, they didn't really make any connection between someone we knew in common. It's always a little awkward in a certain way. One that I really loved was there was a girl who reached out to me. She went to the University of Maryland. I had gone to the University of Minnesota. So she created a Big Ten connection that I thought was
Oh, cute.
really cute and interesting. So, I mean, obviously we all have our own ideas about what's good and maybe what's a little bit awkward, but I think it's really important to think about when you're writing these emails.
Yeah. I think really, really important. That human connection, that
Yeah,
authenticity really matters.
absolutely. Let's go a little bit deeper into email. So there was a question around, do you automate emails for follow-up and for closing deals? Talk a little bit about automation.
So I will automate emails for follow-up. And what I mean probably by that is just doing my outbound work. If I'm following up, so if I'm working a deal and I'm working that through the sales stages, I have a process in terms of reminding myself who I've last touched, when I've last reached out to them, what's next. It's a very, very sexy spreadsheet, but you can also do that within your CRM. So like however you stay organized, right? Like look in your Insightly CRM and think about how you can organize yourself from lists and tasks and all sorts of things that you can do to remind you of what to do from an outreach perspective. I personally like to do the follow-up, the close, moving the deal through the sales cycle. I like to do it myself because every single day I read something, hear something, think about something where I'm like, oh, this would be really good. This would be great for a CMO that I'm targeting. So I'm going to take this and I'm also going to repurpose this for 3 other CMOs that I'm currently in a sales cycle with. So I just use my good old-fashioned brain there. But on automation, when I do my outreach, there's only so much time in the day for me to run through those emails, send them notes, and hope that they respond and are willing to take a meeting with me. I would tell you just a couple of things here that I think are really important in terms of working smart versus hard and how to make effective use of the content you send out. Number one, again, we're known for show me you know me, which is that research in advance, which is time consuming. How does it scale? It really doesn't. But here's what I would say, right? If you are reaching out to a director title more often than not, or a senior manager, reach out to the director instead, or the EVP or RVP. Reach out to those skip levels as long as they're involved in your sales cycle. So if you, let's say, start at the director and at some point the SVP has to bless whatever it is you guys are talking about, start with the SVP, because here's what's going to happen. The higher you go in rank, the worse their inbox looks with spam. So if you think instead, I'm going to go to that top tier, I'm going to compete with 60 other emails in this poor woman's inbox, and I'm going to be the one that says Switzerland becoming a mom company name, I'm going to sit and stand out in lights and she's probably going to open it. The really great part about that, by the way, when you do that, is that person's going to say, hey, you typically don't start with me. Great email. Let me introduce you to my direct report, Elizabeth, and she can take the conversation. Boom. You all immediately multi-threaded. You've now got 2 conversations. You can go back to the SVP, keep them in the loop of what's happening, continue to educate them. Such a smart move just by doing the scary thing of going to the big scary title first. So do that research, send 50 emails in a week, but my advice to you would be wait for Thursday or Friday to send it. So do all my research, write all my drafts, have them in my little folder, and then on Thursday and Friday, that's when it goes out. When you send those communications out on Thursday or Friday, they might get open, they might get responded to, but what's typically going to happen is the person's reading it in between meetings, goes to their next Zoom or webinar or whatever, and completely forgets about you. So what do? We follow up less than 48 hours later, not 24, don't be too eager. But like 42, 44 hours, set the timing within your cadence to do exactly that. And when that email goes out, it's going to be on a Saturday or Sunday. If you send it on Thursday, it's going out on Saturday. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do the work. You might still be asleep when it goes out. Who knows? But when that email goes out, right, you're sending it to an executive who might be up, catching up on email, catching up on work on a Saturday morning, prepping for the night, the week ahead on Sunday night, sitting at their kid's umpteenth soccer game or hockey game and desperately looking for a distraction. No, not nobody. But think about that, right? You're not competing with every other meeting and email and everything that's happening during the week. It's a really wonderful time to be smart about that. The other thing that I would say in terms of automation, right? That second email should have no new information in it. Should just be, hey, I hope you saw my first email. Would still be really grateful for, appreciative of the chance to chat with you. Let me know if you've got some time in the upcoming week. I'll send you a calendar invite. Beyond that, with every other email, one, you don't need to ask for time again, except for maybe one of the, I don't know, 9 or 10th email. They know what you want. Shocker. They know you want a meeting with them. So don't waste the space being like, would you say at 2 o'clock be a good time? Just go for it. Like, just send them something, right? Educational and helpful. Those emails should teach, and they should teach something specific. One of my old reps sent an email to like the head of demand gen at Oracle and said, here's a link to our webinar library. See if there's something that's interesting in there that we can talk about. And I'm like, let me get this straight. You sent this guy who is insanely busy and a link to a library of like 300 webinars. And you're like, you do the research. Keep me posted. I'll be over here. And he's like, oh, and I was like, correct response. So instead, find a webinar that you think would be really impactful, or a podcast or anything. Listen to their podcast even and tie it back to how you solve their issues that they talked about there. But send them something that educates, right? This is a podcast that a lot of CMOs I talk to, I keep going back to CMOs. I don't even sell to CMOs, but CMOs that I talk to, this is a podcast that they love. If you go to about minute 17, there's a great 120 seconds there about this specific thing. This is something our clients are focused on. I suspect it is for you as well. Here's a tangible, specific way of how we solve that. If you're ever up for chat, I'll be here. That's it. You want to think about too, that these executives are reading your emails at 6 in the morning, 2 in the morning when they can't sleep, stuck on the tarmac somewhere. So make good use of it. Don't just tell them what you do, tell them the challenge you solve and educate them along the way.
Sam, I promise this will probably be the last question about email, but I think I saw something come in through the chat that was about forwarding older email. And I know for me, sometimes when I have someone forward an email and say, did you see my email? It feels a little odd. How do you
Yeah,
feel about it?
completely agree. And I think if it says exactly that, did you read my email? Bubbling this to the top, bumping this to the top of your inbox. Oh my God, I'll be like, I will delete it so fast. I think that there's a way for us to use semantics. We talk about this on LinkedIn, hashtag semantics matter. I'll go at some point, I guess it should be Sam antics matter, but probably I'll never change it. But semantics do matter. Your positioning, your narrative, the word choice you use. So if you say bubbling this up, I'll say take a hike. But if you instead say, right, I think the actual language we have is wanted to pop in to see if you'd read my below message. I'd still be grateful for the chance to chat with you. If you've got some time over the next week or two, let me know and I'll send you a calendar invite. It's super short, right? But you're changing the language instead of the bubbling up and the things that they typically see. And I want to make a specific call out. You heard me say I'd be appreciative of, I'd be grateful for the chance to chat with you. What do you think when you hear somebody say, I'd love to find 15 minutes to chat with you about our solution? You think, I bet you would. Bye. And then you delete it. So instead, change the language to be something that's a little bit more appreciative, right? Or it suckers them into being like, should be grateful for my time. I guess I have to say yes, right? Little language tweaks matter. The other thing that I would say is consider, again, how you use this subject line. So forwarding another email or even the way we reply all, I want to give you an example on something. When we hit reply all, if we have something compelling, a call to action, something that really needs attention, what we do is we put it before the RE of the subject line. It's going to look really funky, right? But remember like when your aunt would send you weird emails and it'd be like forward, RE, forward, RE, and you're like, what in the hell? Okay, kind of like that, right? But a little bit more organized. So look at this and think about this. when I was at LinkedIn, we ran an event at Nats Stadium. So if you're a baseball fan, you like the Nationals, we ran an event when they were really popular. And we said, like, we're going to host a suite, come and hang out in it, etc. Nobody responded. Why? Because what my rep did is followed up on every email that he had outstanding to prospects. He kept the subject line the exact same as it had been before, and then buried the lead in the email, right? And said, like, hey, we're hosting an event. Do you want to come? And I was like, let's try again. So send that email one more time to everybody you already sent it to. And just right before the RE hosting an event at Nats Park this Thursday or whatever, lo and behold, everybody responded. Use that when you have something more urgent, a call to action, something important. I'm going to be in your city. We're hosting an event. Our CEO would love to host you for a dinner. Like, throw it right there front and center, because you'll get it open, especially if it's something free where drinks and snacks are involved and maybe some sporting events. But throw it before that RE, because that'll help you stand out.
Love it. As a marketer, I love hearing that positioning matters.
Yeah. Words matter. Semantics
Absolutely.
matter.
Words matter. Absolutely. We had a question about sales pipeline and what tips you might have for setting up your sales pipeline for the year ahead and maybe just in general when people are thinking about pipelines, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. I think one is to have an honest look of where you are, especially now. So whether your year is ending at the end of the year, whether your quarter is ending at the end of the quarter, whether even you're on a different, calendar and it doesn't end until the 31st of January, lucky you. But a couple of things to consider. One, an honest look at where your pipeline is. I think a lot of people make the mistake of not knowing how much pipeline they need and then holding true to figuring out the math of how to hit those numbers. We have an industry standard, right, that we close about 20% of our deals. So think about this. If I have $1 million of a quota that I need to hit January 1st, I start over, which is the best part about sales. I say that sarcastically. But that means that I need to then have $5 million of pipeline. That is a whole hell of a lot of pipeline. Am I going to hit it? Probably not. But what I want you to consider, as what you're probably thinking right now, is like, I don't need to pay attention to that because our close rate in my company is 32%. So I only need 3.5x pipeline. I'm awesome. What I want you to consider with those close rates is that, number one, every company does it completely differently, right? And we don't know if it's by vertical, by size, by category, by product. We don't know, right? So even when I got to LinkedIn, that was our close rate, 32 or 33%. And I'm like, that's cute. We will hold ourselves to a higher standard, 20%. So that's the first thing. How much pipeline do you already have built? What are you taking into the next year or the next quarters ahead? And what's your gap? The other thing that you want to do is you want to do that math. Now, for those of you who are not in leadership and you're individual contributors or bag carrying quota holders, you might also think that's Melinda's job. She's supposed to bring me the leads. And then you might also think that's my BDR's job. My response to you, right, if you're not into prospecting or figuring out how to build your own pipeline is why? Why would you ever want to leave your ability to earn money, to hit your quota, to go to club if you have such a thing, in somebody else's hands? Control freak, party of one, now seating. I will always think about what I need to do to hit my own pipeline, right? Like what Melinda brings in, what my BDR, which I've never had, by the way, brings in is icing on the cake. Referrals, icing on the cake that come inbound. But otherwise, I have to roll up my sleeves. They're already rolled up my sleeves and figure out exactly how I need to hit that. Quick note on this real quick. If you're, let's say you have a, I don't know, $1 million gap. Think about what your ACV, your average contract value is. Maybe it's 42 grand, right? So now, okay, I need whatever the hell that is, 25 deals, let's call it 25 deals, 24 deals in order to bring up that $1 million of pipeline. Start to think back, right, about how many calls does it take? How many emails? What's my conversion rate typically like when I send out emails? How much work does it take to get one meeting? One quick thing you can do for yourself is set a goal of trying to self-source. Don't kill me. Trying to self-source 3 meetings a week that lead to 2 demos that lead to 1 opportunity. It is a high bar, but it's my bar of excellence, right? You're not always going to hit it. But if you start to do that, you're going to see progress. And by the way, those 3 meetings can also be for an existing deal that you have, but you find a champion, a mole, a multi-thread, a user, somebody from a previous customer who can now help you. All those things go towards helping your deals accelerate. Now, how do we set ourselves up for success? This is where I would say get your organizational house in order, right? So if you find yourself that you're constantly chasing things or you're like, I wish I had this dashboard or whatever, take the time to do this. One other place that I've been successful as a leader, and this might be a terrible thing for some of you guys to hear, but my team at the end of a year had already hit our number for the year. So we were in good shape, right? And I had 2 members on my team who had no shot in hell of being able to hit it, right? I also knew, based on the state of the rest of the organization, that they were not in PIP danger territory. So even if they stayed status quo, didn't close anything for the end of the year, they would have been okay. So my managing up narrative was, we're going to do everything we can to bring dollars in by the end of the year. My managing down to my team was, I don't want you to think about closing a single dollar this year. I want you to think about building. The only thing you should be doing is building pipeline for next year. Because on the 31st at midnight, the clock is going to start over, as we talked about. And the first thing you're going to do is my leaders are going to do is come to me and say, what have you done for us lately? And I'm like, it's the first of the year. I'm still hungover. Just kidding, just kidding. But what's what you want to think about, right? Like that clock sets over and we immediately forget. So think about how to build long-term sustainability. And it's not maybe focusing on everything you need to bring in this year, but thinking about doing the right activities that are really going to lead to your success next year.
Love it. I think this question is semi-related. So we had a question about how you think about KPIs and OKRs. Do you all use OKRs? Is that
Yes.
with us?
Yeah, so I think that this is also, I'm curious what the question is specifically about. So I think the biggest piece of advice, without understanding more, that I can give you is what isn't measured won't be done. So I do think about KPIs. I do think about metrics we want to hold our teams to. If I just say, go build pipeline, right? And I don't say, like, here are my expectations, that 3, 2, 1 I talked about, right? Or to say, I don't care where your pipeline comes from, but this is what we need to see. Like, I need to see a 25% growth quarter over quarter, month over month. If I don't have something like that, people aren't going to have direction that they need from us, and they're not going to know exactly what to do. You are going to have your SAMs of the world, where you're going to say, here's a territory, some software, go figure it out, and I will go figure it out. 97% of your reps aren't going to do that. So they need structure and direction, right? The other thing that is that even if you set up these KPIs, if I look at the 3, 2, 1, or if I look at the quota and the pipeline and how things are closing, I also have to look at the activity of the rep. And even if things aren't exactly where they need to be, I need to know if I can trust their process, right? Some of my best reps have ended at, like, even I've ended at, like, I think 4th month into the year, instead of being at 100% of my number, I was at 43% of my number. And then I ended up winning rep of the year that year. Sometimes you're not going, all the cards aren't going to fall in the right place, right? And your territory is going to stink and things are going to happen. Job changes are going to go awry. But what you have to look at is, are they meeting their metrics relatively consistently? Are they having the right conversations? Are they continuing conversations with their deals? But there needs to be something for them to be able to be measured against. I was going to say one more thing there, but hopefully that's helpful for whoever asked.
Yeah, I couldn't, this was really just like a kind of a phrase of a question rather than a full question. So we didn't really have much more other than KPIs along the sales funnel there. But I think that sounded really good. There was also a question about, I don't know if it's fair to ask you this. Maybe this is a better one for me. What's the ideal period of time after a sale to begin a marketing journey for further advanced training? Probably onboarding is part of that too. So,
You
um,
go. Yeah, you take
yeah, I
this
mean,
one.
I'd love to hear your thoughts about it too, but I mean, we start onboarding emails right away, actually. So we have cadences that we're running. We want to start the conversation with people. We want to get people used to hearing from us. We want to make sure people understand different features in the CRM. What can they do to maximize their ability to use them? So I would say go for it. What would you say?
Yeah, and I think too, like, you've got to remember that you're here to solve a challenge for that buyer. So the buyer's already said, like, we want a little bit of what you've got. Now, how else can we support you? Those marketing campaigns, once they've come on board, is a great opportunity for you to nurture and educate. So even for us, when we talk to our customers and they come on, let's say, for sales training, and then we start to say, by the way, one really helpful thing you can do for your reps is start to create voices for yourselves on LinkedIn. As executives, you should have a brand. You should start to post content, especially around the company. Your sales reps can use that. And they're like, oh, great. Where do we do that? How do we do that? And we're like, oh, you can hire us for that. Great. So consider, right, that your strategies and the things that you sell, right, usually come together or have a greater purpose and productivity if all utilized together. So start right out of the gate, right? I don't think this is a place where you need to pause or wait for any kind of like sensitive timing. I will say a probably related question is, when is it okay to ask for a referral from somebody that's bought from us? So what I would say there is timing is of the essence there, but in a slow your roll just a little bit way. One thing that I would always do as a rep is, once I close a deal, right? If you're like the organizations I've worked at, you either get to hold the account for a little while, or it sails out of your hands immediately into a CSM and AM, and you're like, oh, all that work, great. Off to somebody else. But what I would do, right, is set a reminder for 30, 60, 120 days, or 30, 90, 120 days. And I'd come back to that buyer. How's it going? Are we giving you what you needed? Are your expectations being met? Can I escalate anything? Is there anything you need? Can I educate your teams on anything that we talked about in the sales process? One of the things that I love about that, particularly when the account leaves me, is that I'm going back to the client when I need absolutely nothing for them from them, and I'm offering my time and support. And they're like, ah, cool. They don't even realize, right? They're like, you can't possibly be talking to me because I have no revenue to offer you anymore. It's such a great way to just make sure they get a positive experience, and frankly, to be different as a rep. Once you get that positive feedback, once somebody says like, this changed our lives, this is the most amazing thing ever, you're like, I'm so glad you said that, because now I would like to ask you for something. And that's when you can ask for a referral. Maybe not exactly like that, say it a little bit more tactfully, but go to them and say, by the way, right, buyer, you are connected to 78 other buyers that I would like to get in front of, and make that direct ask for a referral. Wait for the ink to be dry, but wait a little bit longer after that. Make sure they're happy, make sure they're getting a positive experience, and then say, who else do you know? There's some really good stuff on referrals on our website too. If you want language, medium, how to ask for that, how to pull a list on LinkedIn, all of that, pop to our website. And I'll just say that in the interest of time today.
Fantastic. Yeah, we are getting close to the end. I've got one more question here that I want to ask you. So, we had something come in. What do I do to make sure that my team is using our CRM so we get the most from our data?
Hold them accountable. So again, if it's not measured, it won't be done. And I think CRMs can be tricky, right? Because a lot of reps look at CRMs as like, if I put information, I spend the administrative time in there, right? It's really just helping the company, not me. And man, are they wrong, right? The data and the validity of the data and the notes and everything are so, so helpful. So I would say, right, your expectation, AE, right, is that when you go into a territory that you've gotten, that the notes are kept up to date, that the contact records are there, that, you know, you've correctly identified who everybody's roles are. So if you expect that, you also have to be the example of what to expect. I think you can also tie, we've seen some companies do really creative things here in terms of tying closed won to things in terms of data accuracy. So you don't get to close won a deal until we have at least 6 contacts in our CRM, and then they're accurately aligned with champion buyer, economic buyer, influencer, skeptic, all of that stuff, right? And that, you know, if you're not gonna, it's like when you can't close a deal until you have a PO. You can't close a deal until you have your PO and your data in there. But measure it, inspect it. This should also be part of when you're going through your forecasts, look at that information, especially if people are forecasting your deals to close. And then you say, well, I only see Melinda as your contact. What about the 17 other people she relies on to make a decision? And that rep's like, well, yeah, it's in my notes. You can be like, it has to be here, right? In order for it to close, it has to be here. So push them to do that data accuracy. They're going to expect, again, that structure from you.
Love it. Love to hear it all. Those were such great questions. I really want to thank the audience for submitting, really incredibly thoughtful questions. And Sam, thank you so much for your answers. It's always so great to have you on here. Like I said, I'm sure we've got tons of Insightly customers on the line, and thank you so much to everybody for joining us. If you're not an Insightly customer, I really encourage you to consider Insightly. Take a look. Insightly CRM is really flexible, really customizable, and it does not break the bank. As an additional incentive, we are running a promotion at the moment. If you're serious about looking for a CRM or switching CRMs, take a demo with our sales team. We'll send you a $50 gift card. And for Insightly customers, if you refer someone to us and they take a demo, we will also send you a gift card. So there's something in it for you too. We've officially run out of time for the webinar. If you had a question specific to Insightly, someone from our team will be reaching out to you directly this week. And one last reminder that everybody is going to get a copy of the recording in their inbox either tomorrow or early next week. Thank you so much, Sam, again, for sharing your insights and expertise. So great to see you. Any last words of encouragement to our sales friends as they jump into a new year?
Find a way to build your resilience when things don't quite go your way. Mine's always music. A little J-Lo always helps me on my side. But hang in there, especially as we get to the end of the year. Just remember why you started and keep going.
Love it. Thank you all again so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.